Hello again, everybody, and welcome to You Bet CaneSport with Lee Sterling, our weekly look at the Miami Hurricanes and other games from the betting standpoint. I'm Gary Furman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined by Lee Sterling himself of ParamountSports.com. If those of you that listened to us last week or listened to me, I told you, go to ParamountSports.com, go give Lee Sterling a call. I know you don't like to brag, Lee. You went 8-1 last week in college football, and man, I'll tell you that's pretty damn impressive when you consider that we really don't know what these teams are going to look like. And exhibit number one, I'll say, is the Florida State Seminoles. I mean, starting the year 0-2. I mean, nobody really saw that coming. Maybe you did. You can tell us here in a minute. And then Miami goes into Gainesville, and as I think both of us astutely expected, did a really good job dismantling the Florida Gators, who were completely overmatched in that game. So many questions I have for you. Let me start with the Hurricanes. Did they exceed your expectations?
Absolutely, or at least lived up to almost every single one. So I told my wife before the game, I said, honey, if we don't beat Florida and look good, I think I'm done. 20 years of pain, I just can't take it.
I thought you were going to say you told her to bet the house.
Well, we bet a lot on the game. And well, when we win, it's we bet. When we lose, It's my fault. So that's the way it goes in my house. So we bet a lot. It was my second strongest game. My biggest game was Nebraska for the weekend, and scared me a little bit there. They were laying 27.5. They were up 33-7. They take the quarterback, this new hotshot freshman quarterback, early in the third period. They played the second and the third string quarterback, and with about 5-6 minutes to go in the game, got to the 1 yard line and couldn't score. So I had to sit there and sweat out a horrific UTEP team getting to midfield and then finally stopping them. So it never should have come down to that.
Let me just talk really quick, because I hate games with lines like that, just for the reason you're talking about. And since there's no line on the Miami game this week, I'm going to exploit our time with you here for just some little inside tidbits for those that bet on sports. And I personally have always hated a 27-point line like that. I stay away from those games in my sports betting app. And for the reason you just said, like you had the game nailed, but you're sweating out the final minutes to cover a big line. What's the methodology behind that?
Well, the only reason I gave it out big was in the summertime when I was studying teams. I had 14 teams I thought were going to either be better or worse. And Nebraska was one of the better ones, and UTEP I thought was going to be the second or third worst team in the country. And they were. It's just that, I mean, who would think with Nebraska's got to play Colorado this week, that they're going to take the starting quarterback early in the third? I thought, okay, late third, early fourth, but they not only played the second, they played the third string quarterback. So normally I stay away from a lot of those games, but thought I had come on to something, and it turned out okay for us. So we won that. We hit Miami as our second biggest play. It was an incredible weekend. We actually had the weekend before, we did have Georgia Tech plus the points against Florida State. Monday night actually had the under. So I didn't like the fact that the line started at 21.5 and dropped to like 16 points by game time. So I went with the under, and that still won also pretty easily by 10 points. So it was an incredible weekend. Miami showed out. So here's a couple things, and some of these things people have talked about. Obviously, both lines dominated, which was impressive. They played with discipline. They had no pre-snap penalties. They looked prepared. There wasn't any indecision. Even when a quarterback was scrambling, the receivers were running to daylight to get open. We looked like, and I saw a lot of teams. I've seen almost every team out there, Division I team. I think we're, first glance, look like a top 10, top 12 team. Are we Georgia's level, Ohio State's level? Maybe not, but maybe not that far behind. Cam Ward lived up to the billing and more. The tight ends are emerging. And we conquered. It was like old times. I mean, it was like we were taking prisoners If we want any of those recruits for Florida, I think we could take them after that beatdown. And another thing, I liked that our coaching staff had enough confidence in a freshman to start him, Frederic at corner. He only played 20-something snaps, but I like that. So just a dominating performance. We looked like the Canes of old. And you know what? We're back.
You have no idea. I felt like I was in the middle of a filming of the U Part 4 up there at the end of that game. It was unbelievable as Miami was leaving the field and all the crazy stuff that was going on. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, how does this change the national perception of Miami? I mean, Florida's not going to be a very good team. I don't know how many games you think they're going to win. I don't see that team winning more than 4 or 5 games, right?
Maybe 3.
Maybe even 3. Yeah. I mean, is it too late to take the underly? But do they take those bets a week into the season?
I like the freshman quarterback that they have, and I think they're going to play him extensively now that their starter is going to be out with a concussion for a week or 2, and he'll at least give them experience. And let's say they win 4 games for the season. Whether Billy Napier is there or not for next year, they can sell that this is a kid that you can come aboard and you can build around. So they might have more to sell with him if he's good than Florida State. I was telling everyone DJ Ugalele is not good. I didn't get it. I mean, got beaten out easily at Clemson. He wasn't any good at Oregon State. Only reason that they were as good as they were for a number of games is the running back from Miami now. I mean, let's be honest. So I think we're in great shape. I think if this is let's say a 10 or 11 win season here for Miami in the regular season, or let's say we run the table, Mario's going to be able to handpick guys that he wants. And I mean, how he was able to recruit even before this is almost unimaginable. So he's going to keep recruiting. The money's going to keep pouring in. The collective, or whatever they want to call it, is going to grow from, I think it was 15, it's going to grow to 20 or 25 million. You know what? You got to play within the system. Dabo didn't want to do it.
It may not grow to 20, 25 million. I'm going to tell you why. They're going to revenue sharing. So you're going to have 15, 20 million being paid the football players just from the revenue sharing.
Right.
That money's got to come from someplace. So I don't know if the NIL budget on top of that is going to stay at 15, but it's going to have to be competitive because the best players in college football are going to still want NIL deals. Let me ask you this.
Good point. Before we go into that, Gary, good point about that. And I just think that this was, you know what, for the school. Remember, there's been 2 other times where the admissions went crazy. After Miami won the 83 national championship, it started changing slowly from Suntan U to a very respected, it's not the Notre Dame of the South, but or the Harvard of the South, but it's a very respected school, top 50, top 60 school. Then, believe it or not, the most admissions sent in one single day or week was after game day was here against Notre Dame, when it was freezing cold in the Midwest and in the East, and we won that weekend. I think the admission staff is going to have a really tough time if we keep this up.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask you this. Yeah. So how does that performance in Gainesville alter the lines that Miami is going to have here moving forward?
We'll find out next week, or later this week if they post a line game day. That's the problem against these FCS opponents. There's certain teams are just not posting lines. Now, the better FCS opponents, the South Dakota States, the North Dakotas, the Western Carolinas are giving them lines. But, we can probably make this score anything we want to make it. And just depends how long he keeps in the starters. I would probably only keep the starters in a half or a little bit more at most. So let's see what happens there. But I think, for the short term, 1 week, you see all of a sudden, everything take off. And I think our lines are going to go way, way up. And then the combination with Florida State and Clemson, how bad they looked, it doesn't look like there's anyone even that good in the ACC.
So you're going to be balancing as the year goes forward, and we have these shows and have these conversations where the line possibly gets too high.
Right.
It sounds like. So was Florida A&M one of the teams that you researched this summer, or do you just ignore
No,
that?
there was very little out there on them.
So you don't really get to that level. It's very
No,
hard.
I saw
Okay.
they won like by a point. They held off, I think, Norfolk State on a 2-point conversion with 6 minutes to go. I saw that, but you can't even find the game. I couldn't find it even on YouTube.
Okay, so Florida State, let's talk about them for a second. 0-2. How did everybody get it so wrong with the Seminoles in Tallahassee?
Well, they hit on every kid last year in the portal they brought in. I mean, not only were they contributors, they even got drafted high, almost every one of them. And this year, it looks like almost every one of them was, misses, a swing and a miss. I did not see them in Clemson as the best team. I saw us as the best team. I'd seen this team. I was really impressed. And I kind of tempered my enthusiasm just because, you're playing at the Swamp. Anything can happen. But we took the fight right out of Florida, and that's what was most impressive. And we finally looked like, I think, the dream or the vision that Mario had. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not saying we're going to go undefeated, but anyone brings us, they're going to have to bring it, and I don't think we're going to hand someone or come out real flat anymore.
Where do you see Miami as an underdog in these final 11 games?
Nowhere.
Not even at Louisville.
No.
Interesting.
Unless we look terrible in 2 of the next 3 games before then, and unless Louisville looks great, they're also their best receiver may not even be ready to come back by then. I think he did something to his knee or a collarbone. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. So, they're dangerous. I mean, remember, they got Petrino as their offensive coordinator, brought back his brother.
Brom.
Yeah, Brom. I'm sorry. Yeah, Brom. Yeah. Mixing them up.
Petrino was run out of there years ago.
Yeah, that's right. No, so Louisville will bring them back,
Yeah,
So,
they don't care. Yeah.
Petrino was a coach. Brom was
went
there.
from Purdue to Louisville.
Yeah, that's right. So no, but I think it's his brother, the offensive coordinator.
Possibly, but it's really his offense.
No, I'm not sure. So
I'm not. I don't know who he names as offensive coordinator, but he calls the whole thing. I mean, it's his baby.
Yeah. So should be a lot of fun. I mean, going forward. I mean, it was an incredible day, incredible weekend. It's still going on today. It's a good feeling. So
yeah. All right, let me ask you about a couple other of the games that are kind of interesting this weekend in college football. I'm looking at Texas and Michigan, and I'm very anxious to see, is Texas what everybody thinks Texas is? They're expecting them to contend for the national title this year. They're going to Michigan. They are 7-point favorites going on the road to play the defending national champions. Your thoughts on that game?
I think Michigan's going to get exposed, and this is the game. I watched this kid, former walk-on, Davis Warren. He beat out OG at quarterback. I don't think he's going to be the quarterback next week or the week after. I think Texas is going to put the kibosh on him. He only, completed passes for 4.72 yards per attempt. They just were throwing underneath. Their 4 scoring drives were from 26 to 47 yards. A touchdown on a pick six sealed the game. I wasn't impressed at all. Texas is loaded. I mean, you've been following it as far as on the recruiting. They go pretty much 2 or 3 deep almost at every position. So they're one of those 5 teams that's up there. And, other than Michigan playing at home, I think, and it's not that tough to play there. I mean, it's not real loud. You and I have been there before. So I think Texas is going to do a number on them. I like Texas 27-16. I'll lay the 7.
All right. And also Tennessee and NC State are playing in Charlotte. And what was believed to be a decent NC State team. And they made Tennessee a 7.5-point favorite in that game. your thoughts on that?
Well, the first three quarters, Grayson McCall did not look good at all. The transfer quarterback from Coastal Carolina came to North Carolina State. I love the kid. I think he's like 88, 66 or 81, something like that, touchdowns in his career and under 20 interceptions. He was banged up last year. First three quarters, he was off. I mean, you could see that he was not on the same page with his receivers, and he was high, he was wide, he was behind guys. But all of a sudden, with 14:44 left in the fourth quarter, he went wild, and it all came together. And he only ran the ball 5 times. He's also a dual threat quarterback. They've got 3 stud receivers. I mean, you saw last year that kid, Casey Concepcion. Concepcion is something special. They have a really good tight end, another good receiver. Their defense is okay. I think Tennessee has a scary good offense. They have 3 true freshman receivers that are good. They go, I think they've got 8 receivers that could start for most teams, but they have one weakness: their defensive backfield. There's not a guy on the defensive backfield for Tennessee that would even come close to starting at Miami. I think it's about matchups here. I think the wrong team's favored. Upset of the weekend, North Carolina State. Finally, the ACC does something, 38-34 over Tennessee.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll be watching that one closely. And so just before we go, final perceptions from the first weekend of college football. Do they have the right teams at the top? What's the Lee Sterling top 4 right now?
I would say Georgia, Ohio State, Texas. I'm not looking at the poll right now, but those would probably be my top 3.
Those are the ones that are really standing out to you.
Yeah. Ohio State didn't look great, but and I actually might like Oregon, number 4. Ohio State and Oregon kind of struggled. Oregon only scored 24 points, but they had 500 and something yards. It was just one of those things. Dylan Gabriel's he's gonna come on. He'll have a big season. He's got 2 stud receivers. He's got Johnson and Evan Stewart from Texas A&M. They haven't even unleashed Stewart, and a couple real good backs. So those are my top 4 teams right now, but you can't just base it on what they've done until at least they've played probably at least one top flight or at least one conference opponent.
I think Ohio State goes to Oregon this year.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they do.
So that'll be an interesting game coming up.
Yeah.
All right, Lee. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom today. Those of you that want to get in on the Lee Sterling Paramount Sports Express locomotive, fast track to your bank deposits. You see the information on the bottom of the screen, 1-800-400-9741. No guarantees now, just because he started out red hot, but you see the work that he puts into it. And if you like to bet on games on the weekends, Lee's a great place to go for some advice along the way. So for Lee Sterling, I'm Gary Furman. Thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next week.